If there's one thing that games can occasionally do far better than movies, it's a monumental plot twist. As it's literally you being stabbed in the back, betrayed and or left for dead, all those sudden realizations can compound into some mighty fine scenes or closing moments. Some devs and writers are better at setting this stuff up than others though, and whenever a game is skewing for the widest demographic possible, that often means dumbing down whichever landmark twist was in the works so that everyone can get it. After all, we can't have the characters taking sharp breaths and gasping in disbelief, only for the player to be the only person in that situation not really knowing what's going on. As such, many of the following examples had their seeds planted so early the majority of us picked up on them almost immediately, some within the opening cutscene or a character's first appearance. Whether it be typecasting actors or setting up friendly characters that look just that little bit too shifty, often in video games if something feels off it's because there's a boss battle, quicktime event or supposedly revelatory twist right around the corner. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com and these are 9 video game plot twists you guessed at the beginning. Number 9. The Hooded Figure's Identity, Resident Evil 5. Okay, so maybe if you really want the entire populace to believe that one specific character is definitely 100% dead, don't make that character the centerpiece for the game's marketing, don't make them the focus of an early game flashback, and certainly don't have a mysteriously hooded figure dropping by every 5 minutes. Who could it possibly be, we were all supposed to think, having then seen months of adverts and trailers alluding to the supposed death of Jill Valentine in between games. The thing was though, this was literally one of the main characters in Resident Evil lore. We just played as her 2 games ago in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Despite the fact that Capcom were never going to kill Jill off without some sort of major in-game battle or event, the story we did get was Jill tackling Wesker out of a window and her quote-unquote body never being found. Even Chris Redfield sounded unconvinced when he was relaying this information to newcomer Shiva, and it immediately led to fans wanting the reveal to come soon, just so we could crack on with the rest of the game. But no, this is Resident Evil 5's big twist. Maybe it's fun in a schlocky B-movie adjacent kind of way, maybe, or this was the beginning of Resident Evil's flirtation with action movie mediocrity, and it was a path we were all glad to finally step off of with Resident Evil 7. Number 8. Madeline Bergman is Mother Brain, Metroid Other M. There's a whole hell of a lot wrong with Metroid Other M, despite its admittedly cool attempt to mesh old-school NES controls with new-age Wiimote aiming. However, one of the most egregious and flat-out terrible parts comes from the voice acting and general script, which narrates to the audience in the most droll, pandering, and monotone way. That said, the stinky cherry atop this poop pile is Madeline Bergman, a character you first hear about being in control of the game's bottle ship environment and the mastermind behind the Galactic Federation's plans to mass-produce more Metroids. The stickler? When Samus is initially theorizing on the character's purpose, she literally points out that her initials are MB, i.e. Mother Brain. You know, the big evil antagonist from almost every other Metroid game. So the head of a ship called MB dealing with the control of Metroids. Across the whole game, we're then supposed to be shocked when the reality of Bergman's role is revealed, yet that comes after numerous moments where Samus appears to join the dots, only to miss the painfully obvious logical conclusion. It's like calling a new character in a Mario game Barry Bowser and then pretending he's on our side. It's just not gonna work. Number 7. Hilda is Evil, The Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds. Call me a man who once took quite some considerable time deciding whether sharks are made of meat or fish flesh, but even I realized that, hey look, if there's an opposite world of Hyrule called Lorule, where everyone is an evil/negative version of themselves, chances are the good princess isn't good at all. This twist is even spelt out by the evil villain Yuga, who right at the beginning of the game utters the line, "Her Grace will be most pleased," after doing his first dastardly deed. Like, yes, okay, Zelda is for all ages and I'm essentially over-dissecting what is a playable fairy tale, but come on, Nintendo, why include a line alluding to a character's true allegiance in literally one of his very first scenes if you're holding back on the full reveal until the final hour? Number 6. Josh is behind the mask, Until Dawn. No, not our Josh Brown, that man's face I just can't get away from, but Until Dawn is easily one of the most underrated gems in the PS4's substantial library. Though it does indulge in all the most fun teen horror tropes, and does make you start to suspect everything will play out in the most obvious way possible. Case in point, the masked man stalking everybody for the first half of the game is Josh. Why? Well, Josh is the older brother of the deceased sisters Hannah and Beth, whose deaths form the basis of why the group returned to Blackwood Mountain in the first place. Immediately, his familial ties and straight-up weird mannerisms paint him as the most off-kilter of the crew and the most suspicious. Developers Supermassive Games then tried to blatantly say, look everyone, it's clearly not him, by cutting him in half with a buzzsaw after one of the killer's machines goes wrong, but again, we are indulging in teen horror or horror tropes in general. The likes of Saw, Friday the 13th, Scream, it's practically even more of a giveaway to tease a potential fake death flashback, and the majority of players took the buzzsaw scene as a confirmation instead. Number 5, Pandora's Box contains hope. God of War 3. The God of War games may be known for centering on a very angry bald man tearing holes in thousands of demonic enemies. No, it's not Jules coming into work on a Sunday morning, but Pandora's Box also played a key role across the original few games. Opened in the first game, it unleashed a special power that helped Kratos defeat Ares, only to then not make an appearance in God of War 2. It's in God of War 3, however, where we're told to once again seek out its powers, as the mysterious contents therein will assumedly bring an end to the corruption of Mount Olympus. What could these mysterious contents be? What historically tinged delight is going to upend our expectations and deliver swift justice to both the gods and the titans this time? Turns out it's hope, the power of hope. This will be all well and good if anyone who didn't remember their grade school history couldn't have already guessed that within the first half hour. The contrived way this comes about retcons the original contents of the box from God of War 1 too, claiming that this power of hope was always present, only to disappear inside Kratos, yet the vast majority of us starting out God of War 3 were immediately pointing out such an inevitable conclusion. Number 4, you're helping the bad guy. Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is forever used as one of the bastions of gaming's most artistic qualities. It's a gorgeously serene title with a supremely memorable story, but its big reveal is that actually you are the bad guy, unwittingly helping the real villain Dorman to escape. Only, and this could totally be a is it just me type thing, but I thought this was so obvious the whole way through. Why? Because the first Colossi hits you first. A lot of Shadow of the Colossus' meaning comes from ruminating on environmentalism and how we've been trained as gamers to attack everything in sight. This notion of disturbing a peaceful environment is supposed to be indicative of all those things, but there's a spectacular lack of motivation present as to why Wanda even believes the mysterious voice commanding him to kill everything. There's also the fact that once you've plunged your blade into the Colossi's various heads, they always yell out in pain, the music takes on a far sadder tone, and a whole bunch of dark energy gets released and absorbed by Wanda. When it's finally revealed that all of this was indeed a very bad thing, I just kinda sat there thinking, well, yeah, I've been massacring what looks like gods for hours now. It takes until the final 15 minutes for Shadow of the Colossus to hit you with the guilt trip, but I was feeling it from moment one. Maybe there's way more to this and I've just missed something, but it's been 14 years, so please let me know down in the comments. Number 3, Sam is lying to you. Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. Did anybody actually believe Sam? Like really, did you really buy into a second of what Naughty Dog were trying to sell with this character? From the get-go, across all the adverts and pre-release interviews, Naughty Dog pulling the whole, actually, Drake's had a secret brother for years stick was kinda suspect. So when Sam appeared out of nowhere proclaiming that he needed a helping hand to get him out of a tough situation, everybody except Drake was asking so many questions. Granted, you can absolutely argue that this was the point. Sam is the embodiment of the lies Drake tells himself to continue adventuring because he's so in love with that line of work. But it didn't help with the framing of the revelatory scene itself. Nate is caught off guard, dropping his jaw in sheer amazement that possibly the shiftiest looking dude since Uncharted 2's Lazarevich has been lying to him the whole time. Yet we've been sitting for the last 20 hours collectively just watching thinking, you think? Number 2, the bandaged man was the real Snake. Metal Gear Solid 5. We've covered Batman Arkham Knight being a bit of a disappointment over and over again, but I didn't want our own plot twist, you guessed at the end, so let's go with Metal Gear Solid 5. Because back in 2015, MGS5 Phantom Pain was supposed to go into the downfall of Big Boss, but it didn't, not one bit. Still, various trailers leading up to release included a scene where Big Boss lay on a table next to who was assumedly the new protagonist, as it was filmed from a first-person point of view. Cut to Phantom Pain's intro, and these shots were now gone, opening with our nondescript hero looking straight ahead. We're then made to create a custom character whose face gets changed to replicate that of Snake/Big Boss. I mean, okay, it's a bit weird, but maybe it's for an online multiplayer component. Though following this, a fully bandaged man calling himself Ishmael guides you through the opening hospital level with the same voice as Snake, culminating in him being shot. Ishmael's existence isn't commented on or even acknowledged until the end of the game, cluing you into an eventual reveal. And when you finally unlock the truth mission, it turns out this bandaged guy was the real Big Boss all along. That custom character you designed was you/a paramedic, and you'd been facially altered to mimic Snake so the real boss could escape and set up his Outer Heaven faction. Personally, I love the absolute ridiculous insanity of placing us as a player as our face into the actual canon of Metal Gear, but this was ridiculous and we did see it coming from the very beginning. Also, so much for acknowledging the downfall of Big Boss. That's just never going to get done. And number 1, Aerith dies. Final Fantasy VII. Now, this wasn't the fault of bad writing or any foreboding element planting the seed of Aerith's demise until it happened in-game, but instead, Final Fantasy VII's official box art. Yup, in Europe, the back of the PS1 case literally included the shot of Cloud laying Aerith down in the water in the City of the Ancients. What remains one of gaming's most seismic twists was just right there in a thumbnail for several countries to pick up on at launch. Even Final Fantasy VII's early posters would come with a tagline saying the game was, and I quote, "the story of a love that can never be and a hate that always was," setting players up for a story where Aerith's passing was the inciting incident and motivation for Cloud, rather than it being, pure out-of-nowhere devastation. Thankfully, going forward, Square Enix must have talked to their publishing wing, as all future pressings of Final Fantasy VII did have different backings, and the screenshot choices were more thoughtfully placed. For all those back at launch in Europe, though, you all knew what was coming, and that's just as bad. And that is my list. Let me know down in the comments if there were any really obvious plot twists that you guessed from moment one. I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast, and I'll catch you soon.